Приветствую вас, мои милые друзья, and welcome to So You Want to Learn Russian. I'm your host, David Ovcharenko, and for this first session, we're going to be looking at fundamental differences between American Standard English and Russian, because they are different on a language structural level. Within linguistics, English is known predominantly as an analytical language. And the reason I say predominantly is because English borrows from a lot of different languages. But the way the structure is comprised within English, it's known as an analytical language. It doesn't mean it's a smart language, that's just the terminology used for it. Russian, on the other hand, is known as a fusional synthetic language. It doesn't mean that it's fake. That's just the terminology used within linguistics to describe it. And now, keeping that in mind, let's dig into these three fundamental differences. Number one, Russian doesn't use definite and indefinite articles. What does that mean? Well, within the English language, we have words like a, an, the. These words tell us whether a certain object is more specific or more of just a general object. It's a ball or it's the ball. The way Russian is organized doesn't need them. It doesn't use them. Hence, they're not there. So when you're translating a sentence from English to Russian, skip the definite and indefinite articles. Do not include a and the. Do not even try to translate them. You're going to confuse the living daylights out of yourself. And when you're translating from Russian into English, don't be looking for the a, ands, and thes. They won't be there. But insert them back in when you're jumping back into English. So if we take an example sentence, let's say, the boy threw a ball. In Russian, you would just say, boy threw ball. Мальчик кинул мяч. Number two, letters within Russian do not combine to form new sounds. In English, that happens all the time. We've got 21 consonants, and each of those consonants independently have one sound. But a lot of those consonants, when joined with another consonant, form an entirely new sound that's not represented by a letter within the alphabet. If we take C and H, K and H, combine them together, you get ch. If we take T and S, combine them together, you get ts, as in tsunami. P and H make f, even though there's already an F in the alphabet. S and H, sh, and so forth. There's many examples. In Russian, what you see is what you read. Letters do not combine. So in Russian, there are also 21 consonants. And given, about half of those consonants have two sounds. But there is a symbol within the Russian language that tells you when to use the second sound for that consonant. So what you see is what you read in Russian. Consonants do not combine. And just to kind of highlight this a little bit, if we take the Russian word for life, now if I were to spell it out phonetically, the The first Russian letter is zh, as in the word Asian. So zh, then you have the Russian equivalent of an E, a Z, an N, and then a symbol that lets you know that that N is pronounced as an Enye. And you'd pronounce this as жизнь. You may think, how do you pronounce the Z and the N as one sound? How do I do that? In Russian, when you see a cluster of consonants one after another, pronounce each consonant in the order that you see them. So in this case, жизнь. And with that enye, without that enye, it would be жизнь. But with that symbol at the end, жизнь. Let's take another example. But in this case, we're going to use the word for total darkness. Now, phonetically, it would be the English equivalents of an M, a G, an L, and an A. How in the world do you combine MGLA? Mgla. Pronounce the M, and then blend the G and the L. Some letters, you can blend them. Similar to how we do in English, like gland, glad, blue. Similarly, you can slur letters, but they do not combine to form new sounds that aren't in the alphabet. Every consonant sound has one letter representing it in the Russian alphabet. And so, and these two words that I pronounced, mgla and the жизнь, they're considered one syllable. Because in Russian language, what determines a syllable is a vowel. Now, the definition of a vowel in Russian is any sound that you can sing with an open mouth. So even though you can go ooh, your teeth are still together. But if the mouth is completely opened, ah, oh, ooh, that's a vowel in Russian. English, not as clear cut, but in Russian, each vowel is its own syllable. Vowels do not blend together, they're independent. Now to contrast it a little bit. In English, we have 5 vowels, but each of those vowels have 2 sounds. So we have A, E, I, O, U, And how do you know when to use each sound for what vowel? It's based on patterns. Patterns that you have to memorize. And it's patterns within English that tells us how to pronounce certain words. Just like, for instance, right, if we take the combination of E and A right next to each other, usually that's a long E sound, like an ear. But then there are some exceptions, like bear, pear. And then you also have heart, which is an entirely new sound. But you would know how to pronounce each word simply by memorizing it. In English, words are pronounced simply because America says that's how you pronounce it. But there are patterns you can memorize to help you remember how to pronounce certain words. In Russian, what you see is what you read. So within Russian, if you have a cluster of vowels, they do not blend. Each one is its own syllable, even when they are the same letter. If we take the word Iisus, that's Jesus, first two letters are exactly the same. Each one is its own syllable. Iisus. We can even go a step further. Within the word Zmeyeyed, three vowels right after each other, right next to each other. That word Zmeyeyed means something that eats snakes. So, usually refers to an animal, can also refer to humans. Well, that's one case, a legitimate word, three vowels right after another. And if they are different, still, each vowel has its own sound. Now, in Russian, instead of having 5 vowels with 2 sounds, it simply has 10 vowels. And whatever vowel you see is the vowel you pronounce. So Russian is, I would say, easy to read, but making those sounds can be a bit tough. And there's more to the actual language structure. It's easy to read, it's a bit of a pain to write, but we'll work on the writing a bit later. So that's number 2. Number 3 is about word order. And this is the biggest difference between Russian and English. Now, in English, how a word is used in a sentence is identified by its location in the sentence. Word order in English is crucial. You can't really change the words around. You have subject, you have the predicate, which is the action, and then you have the direct object, which is the noun that the action is being placed upon. Sometimes the direct object could be omitted. Sometimes you don't need to say it. But things have a specific order in which they go and how they are said. In Russian, there's only a few moments where word order is important. We'll get to those. But for the most part, word order doesn't matter, because everything you need to know about a word is included either in prefixes or suffixes within the word. We call those conjugations. So we have a little bit of that in English. And to help you understand a little bit, we'll go over those. For instance, when we talk about plural, we add an S. That's a suffix. When we talk about past tense, we often add an ed. That's a suffix. Now, when we talk about something being like a possessive or possession, we add apostrophe S. Russian does the same thing, but on a larger scale, a way larger scale. So within Russian, using the suffixes, you can tell whether something is the subject of a sentence, no matter where it's placed within the sentence, as long as it has the right suffix. You can tell whether a word is the main predicate. You can tell whether something is the direct object. You can even tell what gender did the action. And those are just a few of the things. But because the suffixes tell you all that information, it doesn't really matter where you put them. So if we take our example sentence we used earlier, the boy threw a ball. Мальчик кинул мяч. If I rearrange it and say мяч кинул мальчик, where the direct object is the very first word in the sentence, it's still legitimate. Because the suffixes tell us mальчик, the word boy, is the subject. I can even start with the verb. Кинул мальчик мяч. Or кинул мяч мальчик. And all these variations I'm giving, they're correct. Because the word order is not crucial. Now, the reason why I say crucial is because even though the word order doesn't really matter, there's still a common way of speaking within Russian. And luckily, it's to order the words the same way they're ordered in English, where you start with the subject, then you go with the verb, then you go with the direct object. That's the way normal conversations happen within Russian. The place where you'll mainly find deviation from that is within poetry, is within literature. Sometimes if someone's trying to be smart, that's where you see a lot of it. But just be aware of that. And so to understand the meaning of a word, you would have to know what kind of endings a word can have. Don't worry, there's structures and classifications that help you remember and identify that. We'll get into that in later sessions. But just know that things can be out of order as we would for us Americans. But in Russian, it's still correct. Now, there's a few moments when word order actually matters. And the first is negations. A negation is a word that we use to say that something is not or no. In Russian, the negation has to go before the word it is negating. So within our example sentence, if I say не мальчик кинул мяч, where the negation is before the word boy, we're saying it wasn't the boy who threw a ball. If we place the negation in front of the direct object, мальчик кинул не мяч, that tells us the boy, it wasn't a ball that the boy threw. And if we say мальчик не кинул мяч, that translates into the boy did not throw the ball. Now, if you're not sure where to put a negation, if you just want to negate the entire sentence, put it before the verb. It's just common. You don't have to put a negation before every single word. You can, but that'll be weird. Just negate the main verb and you should be okay. But negations matter in terms of word order. The second, prepositions. These are words that show location or a status of something. These are words like over, under, at, about, even. So words that show either a status or that help identify something or to show a location. Prepositions have to go before the word they are, or before the noun that they are shown the location of. An adjective can go in the middle, but not another noun. So if we take our example sentence, and мальчик кинул мяч, we can say мальчик кинул мяч через поле. That says the boy threw a ball through the field. And I can place поле, the word field, anywhere I want. but the preposition has to be before it. They're coupled. Now, if I say под стул мальчик кинул мяч, here I have the location at the very beginning, but the preposition has to be before. I was saying the boy threw the ball under the chair. So prepositions have to be before the word they're showing the location or status of. Adjectives can go in between. Под желтый стул, under the yellow chair. In English, it's the exact same way. So that is nice. The third, adjectives. Now, this one is more of, it's kind of like an optional one. It's not a rule, but it's good practice. Because adjectives, they carry the same ending as the noun. Well, more or less, or same style of ending. And that helps you know to what word it belongs to. But there are cases where the ending that an adjective has could apply to several nouns within a sentence. A lot of the time, the ending is unique to a certain noun, and in those cases, it doesn't matter. That adjective could be anywhere in the sentence, and it'll still make sense. But there are moments to where an adjective could apply to several nouns within a sentence just because of its ending. And because of that, it's good practice to place the adjective right before the noun it is describing. And most Russians would do this in conversational speech. Within literature, sometimes you may have a deviation. But just keep in mind, you'll have to memorize the endings that words can have depending on how they're used. We'll go into that, but that's later on. Those are the three fundamental differences on a structural level. So as a review, number one, Russian doesn't use definite and indefinite articles. Number two, letters do not combine to form new sounds. And that includes vowels. Each vowel is its own independent syllable. Number three, word order is not as crucial in Russian. And so with that, I'll see you within the next session. Take care.